Yeah, we have a YouTube channel, so I upload everything to the YouTube channel, all our meetings, which most of them are in Hebrew, but some of them are in English. So good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to host here our guest, Joshua Rammet, Dr. Joshua Rammet, which together with Dr. Thomas Hartke, they're the founders of Undermind, and both hold PhDs in physics from MIT. So we will hear a little bit about Undermind, and then we will open the session to questions and answers. So Joshua, thank you very much, and the stage is yours.
Awesome.
I'll just ask everyone to mute themselves, please. Thanks.
Perfect. I'm actually curious, how many of you guys have signed up or tried our program in the past? Maybe you just want to put in the chat like yes or no, just so I can get a sense of how familiar you guys all might be. All right, we got some yeses. Few no's, a lot of yeses. Awesome. Okay, it looks like you guys are pretty familiar, but some of you may not have seen it before. So yeah, like I was discussing at the beginning. Let's see. Okay, if you don't have a university email and you really want to use it, go ahead and shoot us an email afterwards, and we'll set you up with an account.
Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let me just share a couple of slides to kind of give you guys the conceptual background on how Undermind works. Because one thing we've heard from a lot of the people who do use our system and like it a lot is that they'd really like to think through how does it actually come up with such specifically relevant results, and how is it so good at fully scoping a topic. So I prepared a couple of slides which I can show you guys to just give you a mental model of how our system works. Let me share that here. One way to think about how our system is a little bit different than search engines you might have used in the past is to think of it more as an agent, which actually goes out and does a little bit of research for you, right? So instead of just bringing up a couple of search results like you might have on Google Scholar, it actually uses the power of AI to go out, collect, think, do multiple searches, condense the information, and come back to you with a comprehensive and specific set of results that match the query you're asking for. So if you were to break down how to use our system into a couple of steps, I would say you should think about it in 3 steps. First, you show up on our site and you discuss with our agent to narrow down your topic. So you'll tell it kind of initially what you're thinking about looking for. It'll think about that. It'll help you narrow it down. It'll have a discussion with you to make sure it fully grasps exactly what you're trying to search for. That helps you and the agent make sure you get on the same page so that you're aligned in terms of what you think or what you want it to go out and actually find for you. Then once it's established that it actually understands what you're trying to find, it'll spend several minutes researching your topic. So it's going to collect information. It's going to run down citation trails of papers it's found. It's going to do many different searches and kind of compile all the results that it finds in order to give you a set of like really specifically relevant references. After it does that, it's going to save everything that it figures out into a report where you can then go and you can look at it and you can review it and you can come back to it later if you want to keep working on it. So those are the main 3 steps that you think about. Let's dig a little bit more into this middle result here, or this middle step number 2. This is the kind of complicated one where it's actually doing the research for you. And let's think through or explain how that works exactly. So we think of it as the best way to understand it as a multi-search process. So initially, we'll do something more akin to a Google Scholar search. We'll pull up a few results that are somewhat approximately relevant, but it may only have a couple of keyword overlaps, right? Not everything that comes up is exactly what you want on Google Scholar, right? So then we'll use LLMs to filter that initial information and condense it and find what are the things that we've seen so far, which are the closest overlap with what you're looking for. You can think of those hits, those ones where you're like, yeah, that was what I'm looking for, as these green check marks here, right? So maybe at first, when you do a Google Scholar search, it's surface level, right? What's shown in this orange box here. And you need to dive deeper to actually find specifically what you want. So what Undermind will do is narrow it down to those few initial first hits, which are really helpful to you, and then use those to branch out and find more information. So it'll analyze them, it'll look at the terms in there, it'll use those to do more searches to pull in more information, and it will follow the citations of those to dig up more relevant content as well. It kind of mimics what you do as a human, right? You maybe open a whole bunch of tabs, you do a few different searches, you kind of condense it down, you read some things, you do some more research based on that to continue to find relevant information. You can think of each layer here as Undermind kind of doing that process for you. It's kind of offloading that kind of intense research process where you have to scan a lot of information and do multiple searches over and over again to try to find what you want. It offloads that and it does all of that for you. So what this allows it to do is dive a lot deeper than you get with just a single search, right? It's adaptive. It uses what it's found so far, and it kind of keeps condensing it down until it really feels like it's found what you want. Yeah, maybe I can just stop there and ask if there's any questions on kind of that process, the conceptual process of how Undermind works, and then we can dive into a demo and show you guys how to use it in person too.
I think it's very clear.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We can revisit later too. But yeah, so to use it, just go to our site, and if you're on the homepage here, click on the search page, and then you can start to chat with our assistant. That's step one that I was telling you about, right? We're at step one right now. Explain your topic or problem, and the AI will help you narrow it down. So just to give you an example, we can do something that that I used to work on, which was a complicated topic in physics that I studied in grad school. So I might ask it something like, I want to find research papers about laser cooling to Bose-Einstein condensation, right? This is a really exotic phase of matter that I used to create in my lab for my PhD. Okay, and it realizes, there's probably a lot of papers out there on laser cooling and Bose-Einstein condensation, and so it's taken a second to think about it, and it's going to help me narrow this topic down, right? For example, are there any specific mechanisms or type of atoms that I want to search for, right? Or is there a specific kind of experimental setup that I'm talking about, right? It kind of understands, there's many different ways to potentially laser cool atoms.
Sorry, Joshua, I muted you. Sorry, I tried.
Can you hear me again now?
Yeah. Okay.
Super. Okay.
I don't know who's speaking, so
I'm going to tell it, okay, I'm most interested in actual experimental realizations that use rubidium atoms. Right? That's a particular kind of atom. I realized, yeah, in my lab, we actually work with rubidium. Let's narrow down that, right? And then it'll come back with another. Oh, should I zoom in a little bit more so you can see better? Is this better, hopefully?
yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, and then it'll come back with another question that says, like, okay, to further refine this, are you looking for studies that exclusively rely on laser cooling, or also ones that combine with other techniques such as evaporative cooling? This is actually a very good point. I know that there's some papers out there which actually use laser cooling and evaporative cooling together to create this exotic state of matter. And it's right. I'm interested in ones that use exclusively laser cooling and see if it's possible to do that without evaporative cooling. So I'm going to say, yeah, good point. I actually just want experiments where it was demonstrated with just laser cooling with no evaporative cooling required. Okay, and it's telling us, okay, great, that is now very specific. Are there any additional details we want to add, or are you fine, right? And it's telling us, like, we've created a proposed research topic at the top. We've kind of condensed everything you've kind of discussed with us to think through what a good actual phrasing for this research topic would be, and take a look at it. What do we think? So I can go up here and be like, okay, so we're asking for experimental demonstrations. Yep, I was asking for experiments of Bose-Einstein condensation in rubidium atoms achieved solely through laser cooling. And I'm gonna say like, yeah, that's pretty good, but maybe I'll just, you know, add in here to be extra clear, and that dot do not use evaporative cooling. Right? And I look at that and I'm like, yeah, okay, great. After this discussion, I feel like I've actually kind of pulled out of my head now everything I actually want as the criteria for this this research I'm going to have our system do. So when you're at that point, you can now push this button, submit deep search. So this is where we've kind of fully told the agent everything we want to go find, right? Now we're at step 2 here. It's researching our topic for us. So it's going to take a couple of minutes to complete this, but just to kind of speed to the end, I have searched this very, very similar topic recently. So I'm just going to kind of show you what it looks like, right? This is a similar topic. I'm like, okay, I want to find papers about, you know, cooling these atoms to quantum degeneracy or Bose-Einstein condensation. What do people do about why do people want to do laser cooling instead of evaporative? Very, very similar search. So I'll just show you how the results come out. Let me zoom in on this a bit again. Okay, maybe hopefully this is a little bit better. So when the search report is actually generated and saved, let me walk through how I digest the results that come out. Typically, the first thing I do is I scroll down and I just kind of see what's going on with the references. And I look kind of on the left side here at this topic match. So this is a list in ranked order of Undermind's understanding of how relevant it would be to your topic, of everything it was able to find, and then its estimate over on the left side of kind of like what the overlap is. Was this paper exactly doing everything you said, or was it kind of partially doing it, but maybe it was missing some criteria or doing it in a slightly different way than it thinks you care about? So I'll look at this topic match and I'll kind of scroll down and I'll say like, okay, how many super green ones are there? And I'll be like, okay, you know, it was able to find something like, you know, 15-ish ones that are extremely on topic. And then after that, there's only partially on topic, right? And it will explain to you over on the right side why it was exact match or what it was kind of missing. That makes it only a partial overlap. So you have a good sense of exactly what's going on. And I'll be like, okay, so it was able to find 15. That's how much it was able to find. And the next thing I'll go here and I'll look at this thing called the discovery progress, right? And this will estimate, well, Undermind spent a lot of energy and time and compute going and searching, and it found me these 15 things. You know, how likely is it that it's actually found almost everything out there versus just a couple of things and there's still a ton left out there that I didn't see? And so if it says, okay, more than 90% complete, that means that we've been able to statistically model how our system evolves in time and how it goes and it carves out and finds all the relevant literature. And so we can be fairly certain that we're not missing most of the relevant content out there. Like most likely these 15 are pretty comprehensive and pretty representative of everything that's out there in the research literature. And we're not missing a lot, right? So this is a very different concept than when you use Google Scholar or a traditional search system, right? You might see a couple of things at the top, but you really don't have a sense of, well, am I missing things? Am I missing almost everything? Maybe if I just change up the keywords, I would get a totally different set of results, right? So I can look at this and be like, okay, I got those 15. Those look like they pretty much matched what I was looking for. Undermind is telling me it's statistically modeled its whole research process. And it's pretty sure that it's unlikely that it's missing most of the things out there. So I can know that I've pretty comprehensively scoped this topic. Now, after that, I would usually go up here and start to look at the detailed summary. So obviously all the difficult research work is actually going into correctly curating all of the specifically relevant references here. But once they're there, it's nice because the AI can kind of look at it at a high level as well and give you a sense of what's going. And I'm saying like, okay, what has been done? It's wow, it's cool. Here's rubidium. It has a list of all of the ones that have been done with rubidium, but also with other elements as well, right? There's been a bunch of work that's been done in machine learning optimization, right? There's different methods of laser cooling specifically, and it can break down those for us. It can kind of give us a comprehensive sense. So this is just really helpful to dive in and start to understand to dive in and start to digest the collected literature there. Once that's done, I usually just spend time actually diving into the references, right? Because that's, again, where the key result is. Like, if you're a researcher and you didn't know about some key references, but now you do, you know, that's where the real value add is. So at this point, I would usually just spend some time, you know, opening these up, looking at the summary over here to know exactly how much of a match it is, and diving in and actually just digesting those, because that's where the real value add is. But in addition, we have a couple other things on here as well that can help you do that. We have a section where we break the papers we found down into different categories. We also have a timeline of them, so you can see all the relevant references that were found here. The size of the circle indicates our understanding of how likely it is to be relevant, but then you can kind of see like, okay, when was it done? On the y-axis here, this is kind of like Higher up means it's referenced more by the set of papers. Lower down means that it's citing the set of papers more, right? And this gives you a sense of like, okay, which papers are likely authorities on this very niche topic? Those are way up here on the upper left. And then, what are recent papers that might be more overall reviews that cite all the recent literature, which you could dive in if you want to get a really up-to-date take on the field from a researcher. Those are going to be on the lower right. So this can be helpful as well. After that, if you want to talk with the results more, or the set of the results more, you can go up to this chat here and you can play around with that. So if you want to, for example, create a table of results, this is something that a lot of people like. It'll take all of the results and kind of compare them and think like, what are relevant parameters or categories of these papers that would help you kind of sort them and understand them. Here we go, for example. Okay, I just made a paper, a table here of the papers. And we say like, okay, here's all these references, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all these top most relevant ones. Which atomic species, cooling techniques used, temperature achieved was possible, right? You can kind of get a snapshot of like, okay, what's roughly happening that matters in all of these papers. Yeah, so that's kind of like how I dive in and use this. So yeah, Dr. Ronit, that's kind of the demo I had in mind. Is there any particular aspects of this that people would like me to dive in a little bit more?
I see some questions in the chat. Do you want me to
Sure.
read it?
Okay, yes, I can see these here.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see. Let me scroll up until I see the questions start here. Okay, there was a question. Okay, how does the way Undermind work differ from services like SciSpace, Elicit, Cite, and other services geared towards literature reviews? Yeah, I would say the main answer is going to be what happens in the middle here, right? So you'll notice when you use our system again that it takes 3 to 5 minutes to actually run. And that's because it's doing this process where it's going through in multiple layers and doing research over multiple steps. So the simplest way to kind of say how it's different is that a lot of these other older search systems, they'll do a search and then they'll help you digest what is found with LLMs, right? What we're doing more so is leveraging LLMs to make the actual research process more precise and comprehensive. So while our system does take longer, what we're really able to do is allow you to search for more complex topics and still find hyper-relevant information, make sure that everything you're reading is exactly relevant to you, and also give you that sense of comprehensiveness. So that's kind of the trade-off. We've decided to focus on that more so than, something like uploading your own papers or digesting them, because we found the real value add for researchers is, hey, being aware of critical information that you didn't know before, right? Like interacting a little bit with a paper, or, instead of having to scan a paper to extract some information, having a system which does that is nice, but it saves you just a couple of minutes rather than, changing the entire trajectory that you decide to take your project, right? There was just so many times in grad school where my co-founder and I thought like, oh, this is a cool idea. I'd really like to know whether that's been worked on before. And unfortunately, it takes days of work, or you have to talk to an expert in order to actually determine that. So that was kind of the impetus for our idea to come up with this system, so that you can quickly understand like, okay, I have this idea, what has and has not been done on it, what's the state of the art, and how do I scope that in just a couple of minutes, rather than, never really knowing the answer because you don't have time to dig into it. All right. We got a fan here.
Mhm.
The tool is amazing. I learned about its existence. I no longer use other tools. Yes, we do require university emails to register. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that, we're still pretty early as a tool, and it's really helpful for us to know, where our people generally come from, right? Are they coming from universities? Are they coming from industry research groups? So that kind of like gives us a little bit of information. But if you have any issue with that, yeah, feel free to reach out to us by email at our email support@undermind.ai, and let us know what your situation is a little bit. And if you really don't have a university email, feel free to let us know. We'll set you up with an account to get around that. All right, Avi, thanks for the shout out. Really appreciate that. Yes. Okay. And it's definitely legitimate to talk about what exactly we're searching. So on the free version of Undermind, what we are searching is the content of all of the publicly available abstracts of most research papers that are out there. There's actually a really awesome nonprofit organization called Semantic Scholar, and they have funding as a nonprofit to kind of do projects which benefit researchers in the world. And so they've compiled from publishers all of the publicly available abstracts that you'd care about, nearly all of them. And we actually search those with the free version. Now, when you sign up for the paid version, in addition to searching the abstracts, we also search the full text of all open access content. So that is around 50 to 60% of the content that's out there. So on the paid version, what you're getting is all abstracts are being searched and all full text that's open access. So that's about the half of them out there. Now you're right that there is around half of the full text which are paywall, and those at this time we don't search, although looking toward the future, we're looking at ways to possibly incorporate that, such as bringing your institutional credentials to allow our system to integrate with those and search it, or working with publishers to search that content. However, most people find that it's quite sufficient to search abstracts plus open access content together. That gets you, 90% of the way there. Can you please show a demo of a medical subject? Well, I'm not really a medical person. So what I found with Undermind is it's sometimes difficult to do that when you're not an expert in a topic to kind of evaluate it. So I totally understand that. I showed you something in quantum physics, right? As an example, my advice would be, sign up, try it out on something that you're pretty familiar with and you kind of know what the state of the field is and see what it comes up with to test it that way. Okay, do you think the concept of literature reviews and review articles will no longer be done by humans, but only by artificial intelligence? Yes, I think that this kind of search, discovery, and literature review process is something that is pretty addressable by AI systems in the future, right? It doesn't necessarily require you to come up with brilliant new ideas. It's really a process of looking through text efficiently, parsing it, comparing things, making relevance determinations, and whatnot. So I do see this as something where there's going to be a lot of progress. Let's see, what field subjects are best covered? I would say hard science is the best covered, although it's reasonably comprehensive kind of across the board. We have a lot of subscribers from humanities, social sciences, a lot of people from biological sciences and hard sciences too. So, all right, I think I ran through all the questions for right now. But I'm happy to answer anything else if anyone is interested.
Did you answer about the Google Scholar question?
Let's see.
How much are you covering from Google Scholar?
Okay. I think Google Scholar has something like between 3 and 400 million articles in it. And I think Semantic Scholar has something like 200 million plus. So there's definitely, Google Scholar is a little bit larger corpus than Semantic Scholar, so that they have a few things we don't. Although in terms of what matters and what's important and major journals that you'd be looking for, that's almost entirely covered by Semantic Scholar anyway. So most of the additional things Google Scholar has are usually not things that are as critical to have.
Yeah. So you can open your mics and just ask something if you wish, or instead of writing.
Excuse me, someone asked how does the way Undermind work differ from Safe Space, Elicit, and others? Can you please explain it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So like, I think I mentioned a little bit about this before. But the main difference again is kind of how carefully it goes and researches the topic, right? So conceptually, most of these other search engines, they'll run a quick search in the background, right? Come up with a few approximately relevant articles, and then they'll help you interpret those using a language model. But the kind of issue is that initial search usually only pulls up a few things which are, have a few keywords which match. What if you're searching for something that's too complex to represent with 2 or 3 keywords, right? Or what if there's a bunch of literature out there that's exactly on your topic you really care about in your mind, but it doesn't use the same keywords, right? Most of the time, it doesn't fully scope that for you, right? So the difference is that we're really just focused on this research aspect, right? And we've developed a very sophisticated and accurate pipeline, which carefully actually does this research for you, right? It's kind of replacing you sitting there for a couple of days, compiling everything and finding everything, rather than just doing kind of like a little search for you. So that's kind of the difference. We've really focused on the search alone. We found that that's where researchers find a lot of value, right? Is in discovering key things or pieces of information quickly that they otherwise just wouldn't practically be able to go find on their own, or they'd have to ask an expert. You know, tons of times in grad school, I had to call up, you know, the professor to be like, hey, what's going on in this field? What are all the papers I should know about, right? And this is an autonomous system that gets you most of the way there on its own after just a couple of minutes. I would say that's the main difference.
Yeah, thank you. And about how many papers it covers compared to science, is it the same database or it's something different?
Yep. So it's the same core information that other ones like Elicit, for example, cover. And yeah.
Thank you very much.
But I would say, just to emphasize, the key thing here is kind of like the quality of doing the research over the content rather than the exact set of things that are in there, right? Because you can have a very large corpus of things like on Google Scholar, for example, right? But if you can't effectively find the things that you need, it doesn't matter so much at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Hi, Joshua.
I'd like to ask if possible. Is it
Ran,
okay? Yes.
just a minute, please. Joshua, can you stop share? And please, if you want to ask question, raise your hand with the icon downstairs in order not to bump out into others people's words. So let's start with Jana and then Eran.
Hi, Joshua.
Hey.
This might come like out of left field because I'm coming from a completely different world because I'm a genetic genealogist. So I'm wondering, how might I be using this tool in order to do research, whether it's genealogy or genetic genealogy? Can you think of, I mean, something that I might not be thinking myself that I can use it for, but you might have an idea?
I mean, it would come down to what things you're interested in you think are actually present in the published research literature, right? So I'm not totally familiar with your workflow or kind of the sources you usually use. But if there are, you know, journals which publish papers and that are on really any topic that matters to you, you know, we should be able to find them. So I would just say, yeah, it's kind of, you know, the search right now at least is restricted to published research sources. So just think about the overlap of that with what you're interested in and give it a shot. But yeah, it's pretty intuitive to start using, and you can kind of discuss with our chatbot about what kinds of things you'd be interested in. It'll help guide you to be effective use of it.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Eran, please.
Yes. First of all, thank you for the demonstration. Thank you for your time. It's really interesting. And the tool looks amazing. I'm definitely going to use it right now. I have a question regarding the next step. If it's something that is in the tool or going to be in the tool, once I've allocated relevant research, can I go deeper in them and ask questions about the research, or do something like Google Notebook LM, read the papers, digest the papers, give me, I'm searching for certain variables, give me the how those articles are relating to a certain variables or a certain question, or is it more a tool for me to find relevant articles and then go on, say, manually to review the papers?
Yeah, good question. So at least for now, we've decided to focus exclusively on finding. So we do have that chat I showed at the top where we kind of help you digest the kind of like references as a set, and you can definitely ask questions about that. You can ask it like, hey, out of everything that you found, which papers do this, which papers do that, and it will totally be able to talk about them as a set. However, you know, we just have to make choices about where we focus our efforts, and so far we focus mostly on the finding rather than like extensively on the digesting afterwards. That may be something we revisit in the future, but we made that choice because, again, we've found that the value added from like making you aware of knowledge you just didn't know is super impactful, and it can totally change where you even decide to do a project or not, right? Whereas kind of like digesting and kind of like crunching through, you know, some papers that you already know about and you kind of already have in your head, is helpful, but we just haven't seen the value add there quite as much for researchers as in the finding. Let's see. Tom asks, how long do we have to enjoy it for free? Well, it's not really free right now. So I would say there's two tiers. You can definitely use it for free, but we have a more limited free version, and then we have a paid version. So you can use either one at this point. Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in and ask something quick?
Avi suggested that if people maybe have feature requests, you can ask for it. It's a opportunity now. I think you covered mostly all the issues with Undermind. I really enjoyed it.
Well, what would you say your favorite part about it is?
The deep Undermind, the deepen, and then it asks me the right questions, and then it gives me answers that I didn't realize, and things that I found out with Undermind I didn't find out with other tools. So it's really, really deep search. It allows me deep search.
Yeah, terrific. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we kind of keep hearing from everyone is that, being able to find that specific stuff, and making sure that you found everything or almost everything is really just a big boost, right? We've just heard so many stories about people who are like, hey, I was going to work on this project and I decided not to, right? Because I found something in there that already was very similar, right? It's kind of funny. We've heard stories from reviewers as well who are like, well, I got this paper and they said they were working on this novel thing. And then I used Undermind to see if there's anything similar. And there were already 5 papers that, did the same kind of thing, right? So it just kind of like accelerates that process towards you doing something that's actually impactful and novel is our main goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I comment? Just one comment.
Yeah.
So I would like to say thank you. Whenever I commented on the results, most of the time you approach me and ask why, and so on, and that was really nice. Through email.
You're talking about during the search chat at the beginning as you're forming your query?
No, usually I use Elicit and I use Undermind, and I do it almost together all of the time, and together I find like very good coverage. Just one, usually I miss a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And in several times that the results were not so good, I put a feedback and you immediately contacted me and asked why and so on. That was really a good feeling.
Oh, I see. Yeah. We sometimes like look through some of the recent user feedback, and we want a kind of a constant stream of like people understanding like, hey, people rate our search reports. We ask them to rate them like good, bad, or okay, and we always want to know like what are people thinking. Like, fortunately, over time we've seen the fraction of people rating it excellent rather than bad has gotten bigger and bigger, and it's almost everyone right now is excellent rather than bad. But like every time there's a bad, we want to know like what went wrong, right? Because sometimes our pipeline messes up for some reason, right? Or sometimes there's an error in the databases that don't present some papers or something like that, and it misses something. So we always like to track that down if we can. So yeah, we really appreciate like a constant stream of user feedback to know like, okay, everyone who really likes it and really doesn't like it, why are they thinking what they're thinking? So
no, it's my experience is excellent.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
So does anyone has another question? So Joshua, I would like to really, really thank you for everything and for joining us today. It really means a lot to us, and I really enjoyed it. It was short and specific. Someone wants to say something?
Avi, were you mentioning something? It looks like you're muted there.
We saw you.
Yes, I was muted. No, first of all, thanks, Ronit. Thanks, Josh. And I mentioned this in the chat, but I've been starting to do some informal, non-scientific surveys of the people that I train. And one of the reasons that I pushed for Josh to come is because I consistently find that the researchers here in Israel prefer Undermind over some of the other tools. So that's why I thought it was really important to get exposure. It might not be as old as some of the other tools, might not be as well known, but I think you've got an early adopter audience here, Josh, and you're always invited to come back. Or if you have any, you want a guinea pig to test it on, we're always happy to help out.
Appreciate that, guys. Yeah, we're pretty new, but we're growing really fast. And if you guys are familiar with startups and kind of how that works, we just went through the Y Combinator Accelerator this last summer. So that was really great. We're academics at heart, right? We're really, researchers who did our PhDs and did, our own deep research during that time. And we went this direction starting this last year because of the impact we saw we could have this way. So yeah, we're new, but yeah, there's a lot of people who are very happy, and it's really gratifying to us to see the impact we have with so many people every day on the system using it as a source of knowledge, right? So it's really motivating for us. So yeah, thanks so much, Avi. Thanks so much, Ronit. Again, if you guys ever run into trouble, just shoot us an email at support@Undermind, and there's a lot of emails that come in, but we'll try to get you guys set up with an account or whatever you need. So thanks all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.